Hello and welcome to All Indians Matter. I'm Ashraf Engineer. The Congress's internal election to choose a party chief is understandably attracting a lot of attention, but it's also attracting some controversy. First, the Gandhis decided they will not contest but threw their weight behind Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot. Gehlot responded with a rebellion of sorts, his loyalist MLAs threatening to resign if he was forced out of the Chief Minister's chair. Several other leaders then seemed to be in the running, former Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Kamal Nath and then Digvijay Singh, also a former Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister. Ultimately, they backed out and it was party stalwart Mallikarjun Kharge who announced he would contest after he seemed to have been asked to by the Gandhis, though the party has denied there's an official candidate. Amid all this, it was Dr. Shashi Tharoor, the suave former diplomat, who announced his candidacy first and seems to have received affection, support, and opposition in equal measure. Why are internal party elections important for the Congress and indeed Indian democracy? And what about Tharoor's candidacy? Why is it important? Is he too elitist as some people seem to think he is, or is he the answer the party needs after years of stagnation? He has labeled himself the candidate of change. What is the change on his agenda? Most importantly, can he win?
All Indians matter.
We have on the show Salman Anees Soz, an economist, author, and commentator. He's adjunct professor at the Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy in Abu Dhabi and a senior consultant at the World Bank, where he previously served in various capacities over a 25-year career. His commentary on politics and economics appears regularly in major Indian and international publications. Salman is also a regular on television to discuss politics and economics. He speaks on politics, economics, and international affairs at universities, think tanks, and conferences. He is a member of the Indian National Congress and deputy chairman of the All India Professionals Congress. Salman and his father, veteran Congressman Professor Saifuddin Soz, were among those who proposed Dr. Shashi Tharoor's bid for the Congress presidency. Welcome, Salman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you for having me.
Salman, Congress elections are being held after a while, and for the first time in a long time, it won't be a Gandhi at the helm. What's the mood within the party?
Well, the mood within the party is one of, I think, anticipation. I think everybody understands that Mr. Rahul Gandhi did not want to contest the election. I think he had made it clear, and I don't think people really believed it. But he kept saying that he didn't want to contest. He did not want to be the president, at least not at this time. And people did not believe it. And then when the Bharat Jodo Yatra started, he really wanted to focus on that because he really believes that this yatra will help unify the country and send a strong message, not just along the route of the yatra, but across the country. And I think that's exactly right. At the same time, it did open up the election process, and that is where we now have two contestants, two senior leaders of the party, Mallikarjun Kharge ji, who's a veteran Congress leader with many decades of dedicated service to the party, and Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who is, by comparison, new to politics, but he has had a very distinguished career in diplomacy, and also, of course, he's a celebrated author and writer. And of course, he is a three-time member of the Lok Sabha, and he has been a victor in very difficult elections through Anantapuram. So I think, to my mind, he is the right person for the job at the right time for our party. And I think many people are looking forward to the election on October 17th.
Salman, there is a feeling, of course, that while this election is important for the Congress itself, it is also important in the context of Indian democracy. Could you talk about that?
Of course, I think any democracy requires that there is a governing party, and then there are those who are in the opposition. Both sides have to be. I mean, the opposition clearly has to be strong, so that the government can be held accountable, so that people's issues can be raised fearlessly. Of course, in India, since Prime Minister Modi took over, we've seen an erosion of democracy in India. And I think part of the reason is that the opposition has been fragmented and has been weakened. What we need to do now is and of course, the Congress party is the main opposition party. And if the Congress party is not strengthened, it really then in that case strengthens the hands of the BJP. And I think it's vital for Indian democracy to have a strong opposition, especially a strong Congress party.
But Salman, an election that is held only after the Gandhis say they are not interested in a post isn't exactly indicative of internal party democracy, is it?
No, I think that's not correct. Actually, the election is not being held because the Gandhi family decided not. The election was going to be held anyway. It was part of our. It was part. The process had been set in motion. So we already always knew that elections would be held in the fall or the autumn of 2022. We just didn't know who the candidates would be. I think I'm pretty confident. There were going to be contestants, and we now have these two contestants. And I think it's good for our party to have this democratic exercise. I think it's in some ways found some resonance in the wider public because they're seeing this. I think right now a lot of the spotlight is on the Congress party because of Bharat Jodo Yatra and the election. So I think it's all in all, this is good for the party. I don't think we're having this election only because the Gandhis are not contesting. We are having this election because that was the plan.
So, Salman, why did you decide to back Dr. Tharoor and not Mr. Kharge? That's the first part of my question. And the second part is, what has been the reaction to Tharoor's candidacy from the rank and file? I'm talking here about the grassroots workers.
So in my case, it was fairly simple. Shashi and I are old friends, and we're in some ways best friends in the party. And I'm proud of it. And he's a brilliant man. He's a very decent man, very accomplished, has great ideas, works very exceptionally hard, and is very accessible. These are all the kinds of qualities that a leader should have in a political party, and that he would make a great president. But so Khargeji was not in the picture when I decided to support Dr. Tharoor. These two men are very senior people, and they're both accomplished people. They are clearly, accomplished people and very senior in the party, but at the same time, they have different perspectives, I think. And Shashi's perspectives are all about he wants to strengthen the party at the grassroots level. He really wants workers to be included in decision making. Our delegates who are going to vote, we want them to be included in decision making. We really believe that without a stronger Congress party, the vision that we have for the party, what Bharat Jodo Yatra is about, all this will not be realized without a stronger organization.
And what about the reaction of the grassroots workers?
The grassroots workers, we're trying to reach out to all delegates, right? This is an election. This is not a public election. This is an internal party election, and the electoral college is basically our delegates, and these are 9 to 10,000 delegates from across the country. These are delegates who have come up in the party structure through various means, and so we're trying to appeal directly to them. Now, I can tell you that, of course, it's hard to predict how the actual voting go. It's a secret ballot, and we hope it is totally secret. And I expect it will be secret. We've received a lot of support in the party, and what is interesting is that it's at two levels. One, of course, you would expect the younger party members are very enthused by Dr. Tharoor's candidacy. They've seen him, they know him. He attracts a lot of people beyond the Congress party as well. So they like that. They like the idea that somebody can add to the core of the Congress party, so get more people involved. The other group that I think is also very supportive, and it remains to be seen ultimately whether they vote for us or not, is those who have been in the party for a long time, these karyakartas at the grassroots level, who feel they've not been included in the decision making, who they feel that they don't have access. So they feel that this is an opportunity provided by our Congress Working Committee and the Congress President to maybe change the direction of the party. After many, many years of service, they feel that maybe this is the time to kind of do this. So I think we will see how it goes. But let's just say that the election is not what it was in the people's minds. People thought that this would be a landslide for Khargeji. But I think as the election has progressed, we seem to be picking up some support. And if we continue this way, who knows what will happen on October 17th and the 19th when the results come out.
Salman, you're running Dr. Tharoor's campaign. So when he says he represents change, tell us in concrete terms what he will change in the party if he wins. So let's get down to brass tacks. So take us through his agenda.
I'm not running his campaign. I'm one of his team members. I think there are a few things that we really care about. One is, when we talk about decentralization, decentralization is a Congress idea. This is an idea that came about when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister. He wanted decentralization in governance in the country. And that is our idea. That is what we want to implement in the party. If there's decentralization for governance, it also means that we really believe that the party cannot be run from New Delhi. The party has to be stronger at the grassroots levels, at the block levels, at the district levels, and at the state levels. And then we'll be able to take on the machinery of the RSS and the BJP. So it's very important that we strengthen the party at all levels. The other thing is that this idea that people are excluded, feel excluded. Even so workers feel excluded, and our middle rung leaders feel excluded. So we have some concrete ideas on that. For example, when we have elections to any, maybe you have an election for councillor, election for MLA, election for MP, election for panchayats, etc. We want to give voice to our delegates. These delegates will get an opportunity to provide input into that process, something that we don't really have right now. So instead of a central election committee deciding on things and maybe that kind of a process, we want a more inclusive process. So that's going to be important. And just on the delegates, we also noticed that when you have these say election rallies or other public meetings, the delegates were actually doing the work on the ground. These workers, these key workers of ours, they need to be respected. We have to respect them more. And so as part of that, what we've decided is that whenever there is some event like that, the local delegate or local delegates in wherever these events are being held will actually sit on the stage, so that visually also it becomes clear to people that if you work hard, if you become a delegate, this is a respectable position, and you will be seen in a position of respect. So this may not mean much to outsiders, but for inside a political party, it's very important. Normally what happens is that all the senior leaders sit on what we call the bunch, and those who are actually working on the ground, toiling away day in and day out, they don't have that opportunity. So these are the kinds of ideas that we want to bring out. We also, of course, we also want the party to take challenges that the country faces. So we want to have some of our senior leaders take on roles of looking after key issues, for example, climate change, technological disruption. We need these policy areas to be covered properly by very senior people who will be given the task of basically fashioning the party's vision and plans. Because we want to be a party of, ultimately, we are a party of governance. One day or the other, we will be back in government. What are we going to do at that time? We need to have an ongoing program of setting up a policy framework. So these are some of the ideas that we have, and I think we would be able to implement.
Salman, one of the consistent criticisms of Tharoor is that he's elitist, that the average voter and party worker will not connect with him. And then there's that famous accent. How do you counter that criticism?
Well, the accent and his education and all that stuff is not really elitism. As far as I can tell, it is, he comes from a middle class family and focused on education, and became, came within a few votes of becoming Secretary General of the United Nations. That is a huge deal. Now, maybe accomplishments and such achievements are not valued by people, but after talking to so many of our delegates, I'm pleasantly surprised to see that they actually value these things. India is an aspirational nation, and people say, okay, you know what, this person has achieved so much, accomplished so much. That is a good thing. But more importantly, and in some ways, if you just go to political brass tacks, Shashi Tharoor came from the UN, joined politics, and won his first election when the UPA was at its peak in some ways in 2009. It was a popular government, and he won that election. He was invited to contest from Thiruvananthapuram or Trivandrum. And then when 2014 came, there was a Modi wave, and there's one seat in Kerala where the BJP is pretty strong, and that is the Trivandrum seat, Thiruvananthapuram. And then he wins during that wave election when only 43 other colleagues won in Lok Sabha. And then in 2019, he wins with a bigger margin. I think he got almost 100,000 votes more than the next person. And that time, the BJP actually increased its tally in the Lok Sabha elections. So you don't win elections in this day and age with such a ferocious side on the other, opposing you, if you have not taken care of your workers, if you've not taken care of your voters. So I think it is a testament to Dr. Tharoor's abilities, his passion, his dedication, his hard work, that he was able to do that. That is what we need in politics, and because politics is a 24/7 game, and he plays that game very well. And I think that is the kind of inspired leadership we really need at this stage.
So, Salman, when Tharoor said that Kharge represents status quo, it was taken as an offense. So, how do you react to that? And have you reached out to Kharge ji and tried to patch things up?
Well, first of all, Kharge ji is, like I said, he's a respected leader of the party, and for both Dr. Tharoor, for me, and for our entire team. So, in fact, we have made it very clear to our volunteers who are supporting us. And by the way, if anybody wants to volunteer, let us know. 9419072000 is my number, and they can just send me a message. And we're a very small team, so volunteers would be welcome. But I think what Dr. Tharoor was basically pointing out is that the Congress party needs to change. Anybody can say, tell, you ask anybody outside the party, you ask people inside the party, everybody recognizes that we need to change. Then the question is, who can bring that change best? I think that is the real question. To those who feel that Kharge ji can bring that change, but he's had, of course, 5 decades in politics and a very, very distinguished career, and a lot of dedicated work for the party. But at the same time, we are in a different stage of the country is in a different stage. The politics is very different. The voter is very different now. The aspirations are different. The question is, who is best able to connect to those aspirations and actually then lead the party so that we regain the trust of the Indian voters. To us, that is where the difference is. So if you really have to think about who could be the change agent, generally speaking, somebody who's new to the party, relatively new to the party, has had a very diverse experience, has worked in multiple countries, and knows India inside out, including its history, then I think that is the argument that we're making, that he would be best suited for this role.
Have you reached out to Kharge ji to sort of patch things up?
There's nothing. I don't think there is any, to my mind. I don't know of anybody who has said that there's any bad blood between us. We're part of the same family. We're all trying to do what we think is right for the party. Kharge ji is trying in his own way. We're trying in our own way. We then want the voters to decide whose way is better.
So, Salman, you mentioned the voters. So could you share a broad overview of what's wrong with the Congress and what the solutions are? I'm referring specifically to its seeming inability to win elections or even hold on to the governments it forms.
I think the problem may be that the way our organization has been structured and the way decision making takes place, I think that, like I said, excludes a lot of people. We don't really get the correct inputs from the ground because there is a disconnect in the organization. The more we connect people within the organization, we believe the more we know what is going on at the ground level. And I think that is a big missing piece. I think that is, we must address it. It doesn't, frankly, whether it's Dr. Tharoor or whether it's Kharge ji, this has to be tackled. This cannot continue. Because the longer this continues, the more entrenched the BJP will be, and the harder it will be for us to fight them off. And then there's always the danger of other new players coming in and taking on, our kind of space. This happened when we were the opposition party in Tripura. The communists were had the government, and then we got displaced by the BJP, and then they formed the government there. In Delhi, we were displaced by the Aam Aadmi Party. In Punjab, we just lost recently. In Gujarat, they are eating into our vote share, which will help the BJP. So we have considerable challenges. If we do not address these challenges, then it's bad for the Congress Party and certainly bad for the country.
Salman, whoever becomes party chief will lead the party into the 2024 general election. Now, of course, the Gandhis will remain center stage. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the party will be managed by someone else. So, why is Tharoor best suited for that task?
Well, yes. So we're very clear about there are different roles, obviously, in the party. I mean, Mr. Rahul Gandhi is clearly, he's the leader of the party. He has set the vision of the party. That is all clear. But in order to realize that vision, having a country that is more united, having a country where there's less inequality, having a country where there are more job opportunities for our young people, that all those things we all agree on and we are rallying behind our leader. The problem is how to take that and how do you actually support that vision. You need basically a foundation of your organization, and somebody has to deal with that. Somebody has to rejuvenate that. Without rejuvenation, that is not going to be possible. And I think that is what we are pushing for very hard. Actually, Dr. Tharoor, other colleagues, myself, we're all trying. We're all basically saying that we need this. I think one thing that will happen as a consequence of this election, no matter who wins, is that there will be changes because party workers expect changes. I can tell you, after having spoken to many people across the country, party workers are simply not, in a mood to just say we'll just continue this way and just, disappear or something. Party workers want to win. They want to fight, but they want to be given an opportunity to fight. They want to be included in this fight, and that is what we are trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong point, and I think that's coming through also very strongly in the Bharat Jodo Yatra, as you mentioned. But that's another discussion. Let me ask you the most important question of all: will Tharoor win?
We're not in this election race to lose. We're in this election race to win. Whether we win or not, that depends on the voters and how they actually take our message. Of course, look, I mean, you started out this program talking about how Mr. Kharge was an official candidate and all that. As far as the Congress president is concerned, as far as Mr. Rahul Gandhi is concerned, he's not the official candidate. Now, there are people in the party who, for whatever reason, are trying to portray him as an official candidate so that our workers basically say, okay, we'll vote for him. But there are many people, and Mr. Rahul Gandhi just in a press conference yesterday talked about, somebody asked about whether or not these two, they said whoever wins, it'll be a remote controlled kind of president. And Mr. Gandhi said, as far as he's concerned, of course, he said that he was not going to talk about the election because he wants to be neutral. But he further said that both of these men are, senior Congress leaders. They're men of accomplishments and, and understanding. And that it's just that they have different perspectives. To say that, and he doesn't believe that there would be remote control, and he certainly doesn't believe, and he felt that it is kind of insulting for people to say that these two men who are so men of accomplishments would be remote control. So if the party, our message to the party leaders is that Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi are neutral. This is going to be a secret ballot election. And those are the kinds of things that they really want to hear. Beyond that, I think, frankly, Dr. Tharoor is very popular. I will give you this example of what I tell people. I say, you ask your family members, you ask your children, you ask your neighborhood friends, ask them who would be better for the Congress party. I will not say anything. And then you decide. Because ultimately, we have to listen to the public. We have to understand what the public wants. We cannot say that we will disregard what the public wants. That is not possible for any political party. So that is one thing. The other thing is that, you say you're campaigning for an election and you are a candidate yourself. Then you have to say which candidate of these two, if you had to bring the Congress president to campaign for you, which candidate would be able to electorate and would be able to get you more votes? That is the other thing, and that's a very stark thing for politicians. That's self-interest in some ways. And I think I'm not going to say what the answer to that would be, but to many of them, the answer is obvious.
So, Salman, here's a question I ask all my guests at the end of the show. Why do you do this work?
I think some of us are built to just try and make the world a little bit better. Some of us, we cannot help it. We have to try. We have to try, despite all odds. This is a hugely uphill battle. When we started, we were a motley crew, so to speak. But when we started, we knew that this is like moving a mountain. But I'm pleased to say that the election has turned a little bit, and we are getting traction. And I'm not saying that because of anything. That's what I'm seeing. Maybe what people are telling us is all incorrect, and they will vote the other way. But if people follow through on what they've been telling our volunteers and to people like me and to Dr. Tharoor, then we might be in for a surprise on October 19th.
And now we have a bonus guest, Rohit Tripathi, founder of Young India Inc. and a long-time diaspora policy advocate based in Washington, D.C. Rohit grew up in Delhi and Maryland. He has, for the past 2.5 decades, worked on India US policy on Capitol Hill and also within the community on challenges to pluralism. Rohit has a keen interest in comparative politics, founding his policy advocacy group with a focus on sustainable development. He has worked with the US Congress and the Indian Parliament on key policy initiatives and laws. Rohit, welcome once again to the show.
Ashraf, it's a pleasure.
Rohit, you've written for All Indians Matter that the Congress election is important not just for the party but also Indian democracy. Could you detail that?
Yes. In the endorsement for Dr. Tharoor, I opened up by basically saying that India is not at the crossroads, but beyond the crossroads. India has taken a decisive turn in a certain direction, and the forces in power are barreling down with some significant momentum in a certain direction. So, therefore, the opposition's work is what I would say cut out for them. And the Indian opposition is fragmented, geographically dispersed, and really has not been able to, forget electorally, just even ideologically, been able to provide a cohesive response to the current trajectory. Yes, there are efforts that are like the Bharat Jodo Yatra are currently underway, and people are, seeing some hope. But the sustainability of these actions is still quite in question. And I think you don't have to look far to see the challenges that the opposition parties in India effectively face at a national level is one of the cadre, especially of the National Congress, which is, by and large, the only real national alternative to the BJP, has been, I would say, dispirited the last 10 years at least, and even maybe even longer than that. And this opportunity to elect a new president presents a small window for reorientation to basically build up some kind of an organization that can, in a cohesive way, offer an alternate vision for the nation. And which I feel has to be seized right now. There is just no time to lose. Politics, like any other thing, thrives on competition, healthy competition. And I think at this point we don't have that in India. And I hope that Dr. Tharoor's candidacy and the galvanizing of the cadre, the course of that campaign that the diaspora is quite engaged in, will at some point make the Congress Party once again a viable, progressive political alternative.
Rohit, sitting on the outside looking in, why do you think Tharoor rather is the one to back? Why not a more consummate politician?
I think nothing to take away from Mr. Kharge, and he's been a party person for quite some time, dedicated his life to the causes that the Congress Party espouses. But I think, like a lot of organizations, there's a lack of awareness when it comes to self-reformation. You kind of need somebody who it just comes from the outside, not just from an organizational standpoint, but an intellectual standpoint. And that's where I think that the intellectual framework, the personality, the wide range of experience that Dr. Tharoor brings to the table will provide an alternative view of reality for the Indian National Congress, which I think it badly needs. And this is not uncommon to large organizations who basically end up drifting after a certain point because of their own momentum, their own size. And I think I personally seen that campaigning with the party over the last two decades at least, that increasingly the party cadre has felt alienated, ideologically disengaged. And I feel that somebody with the organizational skill, the articulation skills, and the vision like Dr. Tharoor can provide a framework to reorient that cadre. And more importantly, and I think I'd say most importantly, he has a potential, Ashraf, to bring in new people. And that is what the party very badly needs. That's what Indian politics needs. That's what politics everywhere needs. You always want to have a dynamic set of constituents that are ready to participate in democracy.
So, what about the charge of him being seen as an elite? I asked Salman the same question. There is, will the average voter or the party worker connect? And then there's that famous accent. What do you have to say about all this? So, I mean, before you proceed, I mean, I mean, I'm quite intrigued that his accent seems to be the thing that everybody focuses on.
Well, I think that the people who are focusing on the accent are not serious about his candidacy to begin with. So I just don't spend too much time convincing them to give him a chance. I think the people who know that the party is in need of a new direction know that he is the right person to go for. There are my friends who are have angst about him, that they have to defend him, they have to defend his accent, they have to defend his intellectualism, and so on and so forth. And my response to them is that don't. There's no need to defend who he is. He is who he is, and we have to see what vision he's laying out for the party, and beyond that, what vision he's laying out for the nation. The naysayers will always come up with something, so I don't pay too much attention to what I would call rather superficial matters.
Also, let's talk a little bit about what's wrong with the Congress and what the solutions are. Now, I'm referring specifically to its inability to either win elections or then hold on to the government it does manage to form. So, again, looking in from the outside, what's your view on that?
Well, you got to give some credit to the party that wins elections. So that's number one. They're definitely more organized, better funded, more disciplined. So those are the three things that you just cannot take away from them. Yes, I vehemently disagree with their ideology, vehemently, but that's one thing. So the Congress has definitely been up against a very competent political machine. So its own, organizational challenges and political organization, the problems that it had have been exposed. But what's saddening is that the responses to that have not been sufficient, or sometimes there has been no response at all. And rationalizing the current state, of affairs by saying this is just how things are, and the people will realize on their own what a mistake they made. I mean, that kind of thinking is just not going anywhere. And the cadre knows that. The grassroots workers of the Congress Party are well aware of what's wrong, well aware, and they're ready to challenge the hubris of what I call middle management, PCC leaderships, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they may try to dictate the workers to vote in a certain direction of this election, but I just hope that the workers, the block level leaders, the DCC, the district level leaders, are able to offer their vote of conscience according to what they want to do. And the calls that I've made, independently to seek out support for Dr. Tharoor have kind of borne out that at the grassroots, the workers they don't like the way the state leaderships are run. Of course, they're afraid of their position and so on and so forth. But there's a clear appreciation for the freshness of approach that Dr. Tharoor intends to bring.
What's the view within the diaspora about the Tharoor candidacy?
So we're trying to organize folks who are obviously supportive of Dr. Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor has been a big figure in the diaspora because of his intellectualism, the books he's written, his presence at the UN, his articulation. So he's a popular figure in the diaspora across the board, I would say. And I think people in the diaspora would actually like to see him in charge, because the diaspora is kind of like split, relatively disproportionately tilted towards the BJP. And the non-BJP folks are a little splintered. But I think, if Dr. Tharoor can become the Congress president, I think a lot of fence sitters in the diaspora will be attracted to a personality like Dr. Tharoor, and then thereby the Congress party, at least they'll give it a second look. And I think that's very important because, as you know, in India and elsewhere, Indian progressive political platforms have just receded. They're just not there. And with Dr. Tharoor at the helm, there's a possibility to create one. And a lot of civil society friends of mine, even though they're kind of sitting out this one, they just want to see what happens. I think they'll all be emboldened by having a person like that with a sensibility of both grassroots issues and macro issues, who they can communicate with. And I think the diaspora will have somebody that understands them. And that's important because, as you know, Dr. Tharoor was part of the diaspora for quite some time. So I think all in all, the diaspora is excited. We're trying to make them turn that excitement into participation to call on behalf of Dr. Tharoor. But overall, my sense is that there's widespread respect of his intellectualism. And I think that once he's at the helm, I think we'll see a lot more visible support.
But Rohit, just keeping in with the election piece, whoever becomes the party president is going to lead the party into the 2024 general election. Now, I understand that the Gandhis will still be center stage, but the party will be managed by whoever is the Congress president. So, in that context, why do you think Tharoor is better suited?
So cadres run on energy, right? So there are obviously two dimensions to cadres, right? One is how have you organized them, how much power you've given them, and how much are they energized, right? So it's one thing to design a structure, and it's another to actually infuse a structure with energy. And I think on both counts, I think Tharoor is going to provide a new alternative. The current structure is obviously not working, and the current level of energy is definitely not working. So we can only go up from here. That's a basic point. So I think in these two dimensions, I think Dr. Tharoor's win, we'll see some structural changes. Hopefully he is allowed to do that. I mean, it's not a given. It's a complicated party. It's a lot of vested interests sitting all around. Just because you change somebody at the helm doesn't mean that everything else is going to follow. He'll have a struggle going forward because, just as how the party's been run in a certain way for so many years, a lot of inertia, organizational inertia. But the hope is that there will be structural changes. And I think the point that Salman made earlier is very, very important. Something that we're hearing directly as we talk to the party workers is that they want to be heard. This really has got to be a bottoms-up revolution transformation of the Indian National Congress. And if it can't do that this time, then I think it doesn't look good for 2024. The party in its current state, in its current structure, in its current level of energy will not fare well at all in 2024. And we know that the climb is very steep, very steep. So to answer your question, two dimensions. The energy is going to be changing. And I think the energy changes also because, Ashraf, I think that younger people are going to join. I've spoken at various district headquarters of the Congress Party, and I can tell you that when I go in there, not to be ageist, I see men over 60, and that's it. There's hardly any young people in the audience that come to these events. And I think that is one thing that I feel will change, and that directly addresses the energy part. And then the structural changes. I mean, Dr. Tharoor has been an administrator, so he knows what works and what doesn't work. Not to say that Mr. Karge has not, but I think there's a viable chance that he brings in a structure that really brings out the grassroots energy and participation that's needed.
Rohit, there's a sense that there will be an election, but only the candidate that has the Gandhis' backing will win. Now, could you compare the way this is playing out with how the candidate is selected in the US by the Democrats and the Republicans?
It's funny that when that question is asked, I think of the 2016 primary where Hillary beat Bernie, and Hillary basically beat Bernie because of super delegates. Things are not that different, by the way. Incumbents and establishment candidates always have a huge advantage. It takes a lot for an outsider to dislodge an incumbent. I mean, you saw that in 2008 when it took a Barack Obama and that kind of just to once-in-a-generation campaign to beat Hillary in the 2008 primary. So I think that what we're seeing, even with the Congress Party, with the AICC releasing the list whenever it wants to release, having the election on one day in one location, all of these are kind of designed for incumbents to win. And this is actually classic large organizational behavior. The people in power have almost never let go of power, and they'll create all kinds of institutional structures to sustain power. So it doesn't surprise me. Comparatively, I don't see much of a difference, sadly. You can go to any part of the world, unless you're doing a very small local election. Elections at this level, you'll always see a big bias towards incumbents and the establishment.
So, Rohit, here's the question I ask all my guests at the end of the show, which you've answered before, so we'll have to think of a new answer. Why do you do this work?
There's a very small window of opportunity for India to develop a real progressive political platform. Very small opportunity. And we all know the state of Indian democracy. We all know the state of India's democratic institutions. And people like me who've spent a good amount of time over the last couple of decades, if not longer, looking at not just the social dimension, but the political dimension specifically, know how urgent this resurrection of the Congress Party actually is. A lot of people have been disillusioned by the party and left, or they're sitting on the sidelines. They've gone to different places. But there still is a hope, and maybe this is the last last gasp of that hope, that there is a course correction. And it is now up to the 9,000 delegates, whether they want to be part of history and change the course, or they better have good answers to give to history when they're asked. You had the opportunity to do something different, not just for the party, because once the party becomes viable, then Indian democracy becomes viable. I think to see this as a purely organizational election is a mistake. And that's why we're not card-carrying members of the Congress Party, Ashraf. We are card-carrying members of Indian democracy and democracy in general. So we connect those dots and we realize that how precious this moment really is and what the gravity of this moment is. And we're just glad that somebody of the caliber of Dr. Tharoor is there to capture this moment. And the hope is that the delegates who are listening right now, the diaspora who's listening right now, are activated and seize this moment, because I think it'll be a huge loss for the party, the country, Indian democracy, if this moment is let go.
Salman and Rohit, there's no doubt that the Congress needs reviving and some fresh thinking. It's important for the party and it's important for India. In that context, a Tharoor candidacy is interesting and has, at the very least, sparked off conversations, debate, and a campaign that has made people think. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about it.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you for having me.
Bye, and thank you very much, Ashraf. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you all for listening. Please visit allindiansmatter.in, that's ALLINDIANSMATTER.in, for more columns and audio podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Ashraf Engineer, that's ASHRAFENGINER, and All Indians Count, that's ALLINDIANSCOUNT. Search for the All Indians Matter page on Facebook. On Instagram, the handle is All Indians Matter. Email me at editor@allindiansmatter.in. Catch you again soon.